I am so excited to be giving this talk here. It's so much fun. We're going to have a blast. But it is interactive, and that's why I needed the internet so badly. So if you've never done a pair deck, what Pair Deck does is it allows you to post your answers on my screen. So we have a whole lot of fun doing that. If you would like to participate, what you do is you go to joinpd.com, and then you type in this little code. And I love how they give little nicknames. Stoic Submarines Zeratically Memorize Lovely Violas. I don't know what that means, and I don't think I'm supposed to. But if you would like to join in, I see one person has connected already. I'm going to give it like 2 minutes because I know that people are going to be watching this from home as well. And so I want to get everybody involved. So you folks in the room and the people watching Narrascope from home. Has anybody ever done a pair deck? They're super fun. Yes. I'm a high school English teacher. I only moonlight as a narrative director. And so I do this in class all the time, and the answers that come up are hilarious and wonderful and appropriate as well. So I'm just going to set my little timer. Sorry we're a minute or two behind, but technology. Good times. Are we having fun at Narrascope so far? Yeah? Good, yes. Folks at home, hopefully you're loving it. Yes, yes. I gave a talk a few years ago on using Save the Cat. Has anybody ever used Save the Cat in their writing? I gave a Narrascope talk on that a few years ago, and that was super fun. So I'm so excited to be back. Hooray. All right, okay, we've got 15 people connected. I'm going to wait another minute. So now's a good time for a swig of your drink or to get to know the folks at your table because maybe you'll be talking to them. So yeah, 1 more minute. Okay, I've had people drop. Some people are like, I do not want to be heard. But we can work with that. Okay. 18, 19. When we hit 20, I'll start. Just kidding, we're back down to 18. I'm going to start. Time is money. All right, so this talk is called Trust, Lust, and Us, Writing Effective Romance in Games, and I'm going to say and beyond because I am a romance author, and I think that Trust, Lust, and Us work for novels as well. Maybe not so much life, but so like I said, this is interactive. We started on the pair deck. You can also chat with the people around you, or if you kind of want to keep those thoughts internal, perfectly fine. You should hear my internal monologue. You can write or journal or do whatever you want, but I do want you sort of thinking. I don't want to be like the sage on the stage. I want everybody to be participating because I think we make meaning together. So a little bit about me. So I am the narrative director at the Deep End Games. In 2017, I wrote Perception, which was spooky, and then I wrote Romancelvania, which is silly AF. It just came out in March. It's basically The Bachelor, but make it Dracula. And it was a whole lot of fun. And while my gaming experience is limited to these 2 titles, I got in the industry because of my husband, who is the lead designer on BioShock and BioShock Infinite. So I've got a little bit of gaming in the family, although my kids don't care. It's not even a cool job to them. That's fine, whatever. They're not here. Okay, so let's talk about shipping, okay? You'll learn a bit about who I shipped at a young age and why it was formative in my life, but I actually am super curious about who you ship. What characters from TV, movies, games kind of fired up your imagination and got you thinking like, well, I would love to see them together. So, in the bottom section, if you are connected to Pair Deck, you can respond. So I'm going to set a little timer. I want to know who you ship. No shame here, by the way, okay? I did this at PAX East and PAX West, and there were hoots and hollers at some of these, and I'm saying, no, all ships are good ships. They're all seaworthy. Sorry, I am a pun fanatic, so I'm sorry. All right, we'll just do 30 seconds. Because I think it's important for us to dissect our ships so we understand why they float our individual boats. I'm sorry. All right, let's see. Do we have some responses up in here? Oh man, we got 33 responses. This is great. I'm dying to see if there are any that I ship. I'm dying to see. All right. Let's see what people have. All right. Ta-da. Yes, the first one is the one I'm going to talk about first. The original Slash, Kirk and Spock. I love it. Oh my God, you are my people. Yes. Edward and Bella, I'm going to talk about them. Fabulous, fabulous. I'm loving it. I've never shipped anyone. That's okay. We can start today. Oh, Sirius Black and Lubin? Never thought of it, but now I'm thinking about it. Thank you, thank you. Oh, Beast Boy and Raven, you guys. I just bought a Raven wig because I want my whole family to be Teen Titans for Halloween, and I don't think it's happening, but at least I have the wig now. Okay, this is amazing, and I love it. And it sounds like we have a lot of similar and interesting ships. So I want to talk about Mulder and Scully, okay? A lot of people are like, okay, I love the name of your talk, Trust, Lust, and Ust, but what's Ust? For those of you who don't know what Ust is, we're going to watch it right now. Oh, the sound. Oh no. Oh, there is no sound. That is not good. And it's not Are my IT people here? There's no sound. And I really need sound. I'm going to be showing so many movie clips. Ah. So sound is coming out of this guy, but not, anything else. We can just look at how beautiful Mulder is, though, and also Scully.
That might be a DisplayPort issue with the specific dongle.
Okay, I can pivot. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah, that might be doable.
Where's it even coming out of?
Coming out of the
I don't know where speakers are. I'm a narrative designer.
The volume's already up in there, so I presume.
Oh my God, and why is it like this weird, it's all cut off?
I think it's because you're in like a presenter.
No, I've done this presentation 100 times. It is so weird, and it's unfortunate. All right, oh, you can't even see the important thing that I'm trying to talk about.
Is it really zoomed in? Is that what's going on?
I don't know why.
If you refresh
Okay,
it,
I
does
guess
it
I'm
fix
just gonna talk about it. Okay, kids, so they almost kiss but don't. That's Ust, baby. Ust is unresolved sexual tension, and watching Mulder and Scully almost kiss and she gets stung by a goddamn bee was formative in my development as a woman. That's Ust. And let's talk about how to recreate that. So, okay, here are my tenets of a shippable relationship. Trust. You have to feel comfortable with these characters being together, okay? So despite her skepticism, now you couldn't hear the clip, cool. Despite her skepticism, Scully has come to believe Mulder, support him, and so we see that trust build, and that gets our hearts racing. Lust, hello, they're so hot, and if you watch the show, you know that Mulder is kinky, so that adds a little something to that. But the Ust is the secret sauce. It's that little bit of seasoned salt on top. The unresolved sexual tension. They don't actually kiss, but you sure do want them to. And my thesis is that to have effective romance in games and in life, maybe not in life, definitely in fiction, you have to have an interesting balance of the trust, lust, and Ust. And I'm going to go through those tropes. So without trust, you can't relax. You can't want those characters together if you think one of them is going to hurt the other. God forbid, right? Without lust, you don't quite buy into the relationship. And I do want to say a caveat here. This talk is about romance and sex, and I am not an expert in aromantic relationships, so I have had that question before. I think that would be like an amazing talk, but it's not a talk I'm qualified to give. I'm just giving that a heads up. And then finally, without the ust, you need something unresolved, right? Otherwise, they're just a happy couple and they're boring as hell as somebody who's been married for 18 years. So anyway, you need that little unresolved bit. Now, one of them can and should be low. So I'm going to go through a couple things. I'm going to talk about limerence, which is chemical. I'm going to talk about some really effective cases of high trust, low lust, high trust, etc. We're going to talk about these. We're going to break them down. We're going to workshop some really bad relationships in media. And heads up, one involves the Hulk. We're going to talk about tropes, and I'm going to teach you guys my little formula of creating these relationships that I used in Romancelvania. And hopefully we have time for Q&A. But now that we can't watch movie clips, it's going to shave so much time off the presentation. Okay, so limerence. This is from the movie Lovebirds. And I don't know if you've seen Lovebirds, but it is on my top list. It is adorable, funny, and amazing, and it's a great case study in limerence. Limerence is the chemical reaction that happens in your body when you start to get interested in somebody. And it's that amazing honeymoon phase of a relationship where the chemicals in your body are flooding you with, yes, this is the person, right? But what you often find is once you do fall in love on a deeper level, the limerence and the chemicals start to recede. And this movie, it shows a couple they've lost the limerence. And then through a series of ridiculous adventures, they get it back. And it's so cute and wonderful, but it's a great case study in the chemicals involved in shipping and wanting two people together and that rush of chemicals. You know, stories that are romance that involve characters that have been together for a really long time, like I said, may not be as interesting unless they're put to some kind of test. So I just wanted to establish what limerence was before I moved on. I just think it's personally fascinating. So I'd love to show this clip, but we're having some issues. This is from Buffy, and Spike the vampire is chained to a bathtub, and she's trying to get information out of him, and he's reluctant, and so she gives him a little cup full of blood with a little straw. And it's a great scene in low trust because the lust is high and the ust is high. Like I said, you have to have an imbalance. So she doesn't trust him, but the way this scene works is incredible, and I'm sorry that I can't show it, but I don't know, Google Spike drinking out of a straw if you want to see it. Okay. There's also really great scenes with lower lust. Like we watched The Office, and Jim and Pam are so freaking cute that we still ship them, even though it's not like Jim and Pam all over each other, which, listen, I know that there's plenty of fanfic out there, and you know what, maybe afterwards I will read some. But there are ways to make it effective and sweet with a low lust, and then the lust builds. And then finally, at least I didn't have a clip for this. I love the BioWare games, and I love the BioWare romances. And Morrigan's super interesting because she starts off DTF, as they say. She's ready to go. And so you're like, wait, how can there be unresolved sexual tension when she wants to sleep with you pretty much immediately? But you find out it's for the wrong reasons. I know that this game is old, and I don't want to spoil things for people, but you redeem it by the journey being about trust and not sex. And it's really interesting, and I love Morrigan. She's an insta-ship for me. David, Rose, and Patrick are a fantastic case study if you watch Schitt's Creek. So from a lust perspective, David's had a lot of sexual relationships that don't pan out. This was from the episode about the throuple, and it was hilarious. And then David has this super, super strong friendship that almost causes people to ship that as well. But then when he meets Patrick, it kind of all comes together because there is this little taboo bit about the fact that they work together. So their trust lust, like David in particular, his trust, lust, and us journey throughout Schitt's Creek, I find to be a really fascinating case study. And they're just so damn cute. Okay, let's talk about Firewatch. Firewatch, I think, is a masterclass in us because you don't see them. And you don't even see them be in the same room. They're across a goddamn forest, but you are shipping them, and you are shipping them hard, and I know you are. Sometimes it's what you don't see. This game uses obstacles in a really beautiful way. It combines the narrative with the gameplay, the obstacles between them and the things you have to do. It's also deeply complicated. These are two very nuanced characters, and seeing them together and seeing their interactions and the distance between them and the way you just want to bring Delilah and Henry together, I think is absolutely amazing. Also the fact that they're isolated. You kind of want anybody who's isolated to be able to find a person, right? Like it's that nice, it's almost like a magnetism thing. Like I gotta bring these two poles together. And the best part is that because the ending was ambiguous, they just live rent-free in my head now. Like I played Firewatch years ago, and I'm still thinking about those two, right? The way they leave it hanging almost leaves that unresolved nugget in your brain. So, unresolved nuggets. It's a thing. Now, you lose credibility easily unless you can balance trust, lust, and us. Because sometimes you cannot rectify trust in a believable manner. Have you ever been watching a show, playing a game, and being like, no, she would not forgive her for that. That is just not a thing that would happen, right? So you lose credibility. Secondly, sometimes lust is not enough to overcome other issues. And I feel like this is very true in real life as well. You can have just scintillating chemistry, but the obstacles between you, whether emotional, physical, or environmental, are far too high. And sometimes, and this is my bugaboo, sometimes too much us is emotionally manipulative to the audience. Have you ever been watching, like for example, I think TV shows do this too often. You see these characters almost together and then another dumb thing happens to them and you're like, okay, that's enough, I've had it. And then you flounce, you quit. You do not finish, right? Because enough of stringing me along, this isn't fair, I need my reward, right? So there's lots of ways to sort of screw this up. So you need to sort of look at the balance as being a delicate ecosystem. Now, let's talk a couple case studies. My eye twitch has come back. Fabulous. Okay. There's a number of reasons why Anakin and Padme do not work. They do not have shared passions, beliefs, and values. You don't see either of them working together to solve problems that are not that are value-based rather than urgency-based. There was a low credibility just watching them, like it just didn't work. It's a little squicky because he sees her as a little kid and he's like, you're an angel. And then like he's just a couple years later, the acting was flat. But most importantly, there is a critical scene that makes this unable to work. And it is when she looks him in the eye. I think she's packing. She's got the fabulous little hairdo. And she says, don't look at me like that. It makes me uncomfortable. Now, she does not deliver this line in a coquette way. She doesn't say, stop looking at me like that. She says, stop looking at me like that. You're making me uncomfortable. And instantly, our consent alarms are going like this. And he does not stop, he does not relent, and he continues to pursue her. And I don't know how this, I know it was years ago, but like, how did this not pass audience tests being like, I'm uncomfortable with this? Like, she explicitly said, stop looking at me like that, I'm uncomfortable. And I think that scene lost us in a way. I mean, they're both beautiful people. They have an interesting story. The acting and the writing wasn't 100% there, in my opinion, but this, for me, is where the scene was lost. Now, some things that could rectify this, in my opinion, if I was retconning, make Padme jealous of the Jedi Order, She could have also said, just quit. I'm rich and in love with you. And they could have just been happy. Make Anakin less desperate. So that's the lust factor. I think that Anakin's desperation made him really cringy. More back and forth power struggle. I think that could have been hot. She's a freaking powerful senator, and he's a powerful Jedi. There could have been amazing, really tense power struggles there. We don't see either of their vulnerability. Well, no, you see Anakin's vulnerability. You don't see Padme's. Like, let's see a little bit of vulnerability on her end. Just show that they complete each other. And finally, love triangle with Obi-Wan. Can I get a what? I mean, yes, like that would have spiced things up, right? God, nobody sees it. I do. Okay, now we're gonna workshop this one together. I freaking hate this couple so much. They make no sense, no context, no chemistry, no purpose, no believability. I would love to utilize the pair deck that we couldn't utilize from the video. And I want you to come up with some ways we could have made this relationship work. What could have made Hulk and Black Widow hot? Yes. Okay. You can just chill. Oh, the context, yeah. So several movies deep, they just decide these two are in love. We've had no history of them together whatsoever, and we're supposed to believe it. And I think 99% of us just didn't buy into it. And then they also kind of dropped it. So they just introduce it several films in, drop it, and it's over. So that it was ridiculously unsatisfying because we had no context and no continuation. So yeah, if anybody has some ideas, let's see if anybody's written anything. We got about 4 people. I'm gonna give us another 30 or so seconds if anybody has any ideas on how they could have made this better. Was not feeling it. All right. Oh, we got 10 responses now. 20 seconds left. I'm gonna get my water. What was that? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so joinpd.com, and then the code is up in the corner, SSXMLV. All right, so let's see. We've got, 15 responses. Heck yeah. Let's see. Oh, okay, so that's interesting about the reciprocal thing about hurting Hulk. Okay, Hawkeye and Black Widow. Yes, that would have made sense. Despite his family situation, I get it, he's a married man and everything, but they had history. That context is so important, right? That was true romance, and I did ship them. Working together taboo. Yeah, right. So that is us. Like, we could have made an entire plot line about how they had to hide it. Hiding relationships is hot, right? Okay. Right, go back to that time where they met in India. Add the, we're getting a little spicy here. I'm gonna just scroll real quick. Captain America, okay, I'm down. Hulk is tamed, right? Meaningful looks. God, just eye contact would be great. Just a little like proximity. Ooh, Hulk brushed my shoulder. Although, yeah. There are some logistics that I don't want to think about. Make Natasha his handler. That would be super interesting. Or write them both out. Just write them out. That's fine. Vulnerability between mental and physical strength. Love that concept. Thinks it's beautiful. Shared love of borscht. That's going to live rent-free in my head. Thank you. More than 30 seconds of non-punching screen time. This is great. You guys are... We're clearly a bunch of writers in this room. So this is really great. Banner reminds her of an old flame in Russia. Interesting. Bring the X into it. I kind of like it. Very cool. Trauma healing. This could have been a beautiful relationship, but it was not handled in a way that produced any results, in my opinion. So we're going to go into tropes and how to effectively use tropes in romance. In Romancelvania, I used these tropes quite a bit, and I subverted many of them, but we'll talk about that later. So you've got friends to lovers, which is high trust, and then you get to fill in the rest, because they were friends first. Make sense? Then you have enemies to lovers, so trust is whoosh, down. And, hopefully there's a lot of lust if not, they're just enemies. Arranged lovers is a fantastic trope because I've seen it with all three being kind of different layers and levels. Reunited exes is usually lust and ust and rebuild trust because you know they had chemistry before. And if they're not together, maybe there's some trust issue. But I am going to have that caveat of usually because I've seen otherwise. We all love a little forbidden love trope. Trust in lust is high. You have to build the ust because it's forbidden. That's the kind of very Victorian, like, oh, I saw a bit of her wrist, you know? And then finally, a trope that I feel like is underused is just a fling, where there's tons of lust. Like, they may already be sexually active, but you don't trust the person, and you have to build in, the unresolved tension is more emotional. But I would love, everybody's got their own bugaboos about what their favorite tropes are with romance. I'm going to give us 30 seconds. What is your favorite romance trope? Like, ooh, give me some, student council president election kink. I don't know. That just came off the top of my head, and it's going to be my next book. No worries. 30 seconds. Favorite romantic trope. My favorite response, just anecdotally, when I did this at PAX East, someone wrote, when the villain shows up at the hero's house and said, I had nowhere else to go. All right, let's see what some of our favorite responses are. Repressed and uptight and wild and insecure. One bed, oops, we only booked one hotel room. Tired and suicidal caretaker and hyper troublemaker. Woo, that's a lot. Enemies to, ooh, I love that this is very specific. Mafia princess and bodyguard. Reformed villain. Oh, guys, give me a good villain any day of the week, my God. Okay, that is my specific, like, Loki, etc. Time travel, lovers out of sync. Oh my God, yes. Secret and hopeless crush. Gimme. Forbidden love. Oh, I love this specificity. Rupert Everett, Minnie Driver, and An Ideal Husband. Never seen it, but want to. Socially inept person finds true love. Oh, my heart, my sweet little heart. Enemy of my enemy is my lover. Destined. Ice Queen. Pining. Oh God, give me every bit of pining. Manic pixie dream girl. Love it. Who did this to you? Are you saying that to me? Because this is deranged. Super flirty but oblivious. Chosen one and someone who depends on them. Guys, these are chef's kiss. Loving it. All right. So I'm going to give a little bit of info on how I used tropes in Romancelvania and how I balanced the trust, lust, and us. So like I said, it's a reality dating show starring Dracula, obviously. And there are 12 dateable monsters who you can also befriend because I think friendship is important and fun. But with that many characters, I had a lot to work with. And so this is a little bit about my methodology in creating these dateable characters. And yes, that pumpkin has tits. Okay. So Vess is a genie. You trust her because she's a bartender, and who doesn't trust a bartender, right? Like, they listen, they confide in you. The lust factor is she has not gotten laid in 2,000 years and really, really would like to, but unfortunately, the problem is the ust. She's cursed. It's impossible. So this is friends to lovers and a dash of forbidden love. So Drac needs to make a tough decision, like, do you want to move forward with Vess even though you can't be physical? And I think that that's a really interesting conflict. And is there a way around it? Loophole. Okay. Dead Pirate Robert. Lovin' Robert. Trust. So in case you can't tell, Robert is made of many different body parts. And he wants your bod, literally. Insert pirate booty joke here. Lust. All you have to do is look at him. But the ust is he's too moody. He's deep. He's got some not just bad boy vibes, but like troubled and broody and doesn't want to tell you his secrets. So that's the trope. It's that boy who just won't tell you what's wrong. And God, do I love that. So this is our most interesting character that kind of came to me in a fever dream while drinking pumpkin spice lattes. This is PSL, and the name is intended. Yeah, she's a kinky pumpkin witch. I know you've seen many of those in media. So anyway, trust, she's never serious. All she does is joke. All she does is use puns. Lust is she is down for whatever. She's a switch, so she's kinky in many different ways. We have a very sex-positive game, so there's no shaming when it comes to PSL coming right out the gate wanting Drac immediately. But the UST is Drac pulls back because of that. It's too fast. Like, what's going on, you know? And so this is that just a fling trope earlier. Like, okay, if we have, you know, some kind of sex early on, like, where is this journey? And it's about that sort of trust and moving forward in that way. So, Medusa. So trust is she's your ex. And so you scorned her, and there's a big trust issue. The lust is, but when you were together, super, super hot. And ust is, can you finally get past your past? Also, you got to find her body. Although there are plenty of jokes about, you can imagine. Anyway, this is the exes to lovers trope, and Medusa is my girl. I love her. We're going to talk about Twilight, people. And we're not going to talk about it in a shameful way. Twilight changed pop culture, and not just because of vampires. The fact that Stephenie Meyer included so much ust in this series, to the point where the characters couldn't even touch, spawned an erotica boom like none other. And what I mean by that is 50 Shades of Grey. Now, Erica Leonard is a good friend of mine, so I am saying this with love. She capitalized on the ust from Twilight because 50 Shades of Grey was Twilight fanfic. It was Twilight fanfic called Master of the Universe, wherein it was an alternate universe. They were not vampires. But because Stephenie Meyer couldn't even have those characters kiss, like that's what this scene is. They couldn't even kiss because he would have killed her, whatever. It built so much ust that people were like, I gotta write this fan fiction and I gotta write it now. And Erica did. And now she's worth gazillions because she capitalized on ust. And honestly, like, it changed pop culture, right? Like, there are movies about people reading 50 Shades. Have you seen that? I forget what it's called. I think it's called, like, The Book Club or something. So the fact that ust can create lust, like, you can see that nice little balance. Like, you look at the ust, trust, lust factor. Now, there's no trust in the Twilight early on, right? Because he's a vampire and her blood is like a drug, right? And then you go to the 50 Shades where you have to build that trust because of the kink relationship. So I personally find it a completely, really interesting ecosystem, those two books related and the fanfic factor, and I just love it. So here are some in-game ways I believe are helpful to make characters fall in love. I think that you need just enough obstacles between them. You really have to find that sweet spot where you're not being emotionally manipulative and just leaving the reader or player like, God damn it, again? You know, like, she can't go on the date tonight because she broke her leg. Like, come on, like, that happened a million times. And got to be a clumsy character if that's happening all the time. Anyway, place them in situations where they have to be vulnerable. You need to build trust, and vulnerability, when paced out properly, not just like dumped, right? You got to kind of tease that out, is a beautiful thing. And I think that this dovetails with the keynote very well, is find tropes that make you tick. What makes you all hot under the hood, right? Like, if it's that mafia princess one, then freaking write some mafia princess shit, right? Find what makes you tick, because it will show on either the page or on the screen. It'll be obvious, right? We've all probably read something or played something or watched something where you can tell it was kind of like faked. You know, like, they're not feeling that. And it reads, it's energy, right? Like, it's a vibe. And then I would love to know, you shared some of your favorite tropes with me earlier. I would love to know why you like, the tropes you like. And that might take a moment, so I'm going to give us a little think time on this one. If you wrote that you love enemies to lovers, how come? Was it because maybe you had a crush on your softball rival? Do you love enemies to lovers because you kind of love to bicker and you love to just pick at something, right? Like, let's deconstruct that so that we can dig deeper into the things that we enjoy writing and it can show up on the page. So I'm going to give 1 minute and a half. That's a weird thing to say. 1 minute and a half. There we go. You can also take a drink, talk to the folks around you, do what you got to do. Like, I personally love villains because I'm such a type A goody-goody that I could never do anything bad. That's why I want a villain. Don't tell Bill. Got about 40 seconds if you still want to pop in. And there's that lovely timer. All right, let's see, we got about 12. Okay, love this. Hurt and comfort, because you can have a closed off character become vulnerable. That moment where you watch that mask fall off, right? Like, how beautiful is that? That's so good. Tired caretaker and the hyper troublemaker. One brings life, the other brings calm, and then you have balance. Balance is so good. Reformed villain. Yes. Hurt by villainous actions versus high trust from the reformed villain causes dissonant emotions. Yes, there's sort of like that lovely confusion we get. Like, I don't want to like this, but I like it. We like that contrast. It feels good. Now we got the Ice Queen. The deeper qualities is consensually rewarded through building trust. I love that. Yes, that mutual reward. Beautiful. Enemies to lovers because they know the ins and outs while hating them, and then the flaws may not become flaws anymore. That's such a great way to put it. That one bed trope is an opportunity for vulnerability. Love it. One partner is too whimsical. Story of my life, you guys. The chosen one companion, their lust and lust is strong, but they can can they overcome the sense of duty? And it's a challenge to show vulnerability. I love it. Absolutely. Oh, we got more. Yay. The uptightness, like you want to see them relax, right? Friends to lovers. Oh, on second thought. I love it. Friends to lovers because it's gay. Also having actual history. Yes, that shared history, that context. Remember we talked before about Hulk. We need the context to be the right context. I love it. Secret crush, but thank you for clarifying, but not stalkery, right? You gotta, Padme and Anakin. Oh, and a character, ooh, here's some tension right now. We're waiting to see what this says. Internal obs, what? I'm sorry that we're like staring at whoever's writing this. Yes, this is good. Overcoming internal obstacles to accepting love. Like, how many of us can relate to that? Am I right? Yes, I love it. These are beautiful answers. All right, so I think that player choice is a way for us to really enhance these techniques. And that's why I kind of think games are kind of a better format for this than just straight novels or short stories. And like I said, I'm a romance novelist, so I write both. But the way you can just zhuzh it with actual choice is so empowering. So player choice is a value at our studio. So like I said, my husband was the lead designer on BioShock, and that player choice of to harvest or to not harvest, if you've played BioShock, you understand player choice is really important. What I like about it is that I can come up with this trope, but then through player choice, you can choose how that trope pans out. I'm not telling you exactly how it's going to work, and that choice is such a fun way to subvert the trope. And I love that this allows you a variety of conversational options. So for example, there are some characters who I would love to get like spicy flirty with, but there are other characters who I would be very kind of chaste and coy with the flirting. In interactive, media, we can choose how we flirt, and how awesome is that? Like, I've played so many games where like it goes immediately to like heavy flirting, and I'm like, well, I'm not ready for it, Like I like our ability to kind of ease into it, or start strong and stay strong. In fact, on our final dates in Romancelvania, there's an entire sweet conversation you can have in the final date, because in reality shows you always have the final date, right? You can choose a little sweet pattern, or you can choose the spicier pattern. I like food, so I use a lot of food references: sweet, spicy, delicious. And also the multiple options for love interests, I think, is important. Romancelvania, I wanted to make sure you could befriend every character, because you may not want to date the werewolf, but he talks about books and cheese, and that's what I talk about, and so I want to be your friend, Fenton, forever, because we'll talk about books and cheese until we pass out. So friendship is important too. And that is sort of the fade to black. This is just a pet peeve. In my opinion, fade to black is not the end of a relationship. I remember playing, like I said, I love the BioWare games, right? But like, when you win when you finally get the character into bed, like, bro, that's sometimes the beginning of a relationship, if you know what I mean. Like, why is it over? Why is my choice made? Why is it done? Why is it signed, sealed, delivered? I have a problem with that. Again, with the friends. And this is important for character development. The character cannot be the story. Okay? The love interest cannot be, that's their story. You need a B story for the romantic interest. Your romantic interests have to have their own motivations. They have to have their own story, or else it's flat. And you will truly not ship them, because you can't tell what they want other than your main character, and that's rude. Don't underestimate the power of proximity. I know I joked earlier about, and she brushes by the Hulk. Those near misses and that physical touch, and like, go back to whoever put the one bed trope, physical proximity can really be such a nice catalyst for us. And it's one of the first lessons I learned when I was a writer, is like, don't underestimate. My agent was telling me, so my lovely agent is Jessica Sinsheimer in New York, and she's the one who sells my books. And she told me that she watches Bridgerton, and she said that there was this one scene where these two characters, you just wanted their pinkies to graze. I've never seen it. She's like, I wanted their pinkies to graze so bad. And I was like, that's a phrase I've never said, but now I'm thinking about it. And I too want the pinkies to graze. So do not forget about proximity. And finally, in all choices in writing, I believe motivation, it all comes back to motivation. What does my character want? Not who does my character want? What does my character want? And that involves your main character. That involves your secondary characters. That involves your tertiary characters. You want to make the world rich and real. And to make your world rich and real, you need that motivation. So, a little bit of TLDR. Decide what your character's romantic journey is. Are they building trust through learning about each other and what they want and how they can find it together? Are they cultivating a satisfying physical relationship after years of friendship or shared interests? Are they fighting their physical impulses, a la Edward Cullen? Or do they ultimately want to be together? And by combining these, you have the elements for a shippable love and a seaworthy romance. And now, we do have time for Q&A, which is great. So you can use the pair deck for Q&A, which is exciting so that we don't have to have people walking around the audience, and the people who are watching it at home can also throw in some Q&A as well. So I'm actually going to set this up for 1 minute. You guys can type in. I may skip around with questions because some I know may take more time than others, and I want to get to a lot. All right, got about 14 questions, and I probably cannot field them all, so let's go. Okay, so 50 Shades, how can power dynamics and differentials complicate these three elements? Because, like, if you look at like a power struggle with trust, I think that all three of those elements already lend themselves to power struggles, right? A trust power struggle, I'm not telling you. That's conflict, right? I am not ready to share that with you. I am not ready to partner with you with that. I mean, from an lust perspective, you can have a character back off and not want to be physical. I think that there's always power dynamics. How do you write interactive romance with multiple outcomes that still feel cohesive and with satisfying arcs? Motivation. That's what, like when I was writing, I wrote 12 romances for Drac, and they could all come out in different ways. But the bottom line is, what does Drac want, and what does that character want? And I think that they all have satisfying endings because it resolves, or at least addresses, what the characters want outside of that relationship. Again, like rich and realistic world, you don't have that problem. Why resolve a ship in a game? I'm talking about romance games in particular, and my game, I had to resolve them because it's a reality dating show, so I apologize if mine is a little ultra specific, but that was my task. Is there anything that's different depending on whether the romance is part of the main plot or side story? I would say no. I just recently wrote a fantasy novel. It was my first fantasy, and there were secondary and tertiary characters that had a little romance going, and it didn't matter that they were not critical to the main plot line. I still wrote it out like, you know, a lot of us have main character energy, you know what I mean? But a lot of us sometimes, in somebody else's story, we are tertiary, right? Everybody's got their own journey. How do you avoid making a game romance feel overly transactional or programmatic, like the gift-spamming love interest in Dragon Age? Okay, so we had this issue in Romancelvania. We offered many routes to love, and I actually referenced the 5 love languages in this. If anybody does not know that, it's a book about the different ways people enjoy affection. So one is quality time. In Romancelvania, you can choose to take characters on dates. Another is physical love. A lot of people, physical touch, even if it's just a hand on a shoulder, that's a love language. And in Romancelvania, you can choose to be physical with characters or not. Another love language is words of affirmation. So do you compliment the character? Do you say nice things to them? Another of the love languages is tokens of appreciation. And that's gift spamming, but that's okay if you have the other ones, right? And finally, the final love language is acts of service. And for us, that was, are you going to do a quest for them? So we incorporated all of those 5 love languages, but if we only had gifting and dating, it would look like you're just bribing them. So I think incorporating multiple routes and making sure that you can't game the system. Like, we looked at our gift system and looked at the points allocated and said, okay, if I never said anything nice to them and I never took them on any dates, but I gave them every gift, could I still win? And the answer was no, and that satisfied us. right? Does that make sense from a programming perspective? All right. Lots of IF stories that can be multiple RO roots. Sorry, this is a little bit long. I'm bad at answering this one. My answer is I wrote 500 pages of script for Romancelvania. I wouldn't recommend that. I wrote too much, and most people will never see all of it unless they're replaying it a lot. But I think that that's kind of cool, that like it's a different journey for everybody. I just didn't stop myself. So edit, censor. I don't. B story is the story that is secondary or tertiary to the main plot. So, you know, in my fantasy, characters are trying to save the world. But the B story is between the main character's assistant and her personal journey through the story to find love and acceptance. And it's not going to help save the world. The B story is not going to help save the world, but it is going to personalize and bring depth and bring world building. So B story is not critical to the main plot, but it adds, without a B story, it feels flat. So I would recommend, and I gave a talk on this a couple years ago, Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. And I think in my recommendations slide, which is coming next, it's in there. But Blake Snyder outlines a number, in something called his beat sheet, just a number of beats you should have for a story. And he inserts B story sort of beats in there so that you make sure that you're hitting on something that's not integral to the plot, but it still enriches the plot. So Save the Cat, Blake Snyder. You don't even have to read the book. If you just read the beat sheets, you'd get it. It's great. I've plotted every single one of my books with it in every single one of my games, and it's awesome. How do you keep the UST high after your characters have already? I would say insert obstacle here. Carefully. Remember we talked earlier about like you can't string them along too much, but also like as in a real relationship, you're going to have obstacles, and there's going to be, and I would say change the proximity. So yes, maybe they're together physically. Change their proximity. Find out that one has to go here and the other has to go there. How do they keep their relationship alive? So insert obstacle that's realistic and not manipulative. Do you design characters knowing they can be romanced, or do you discover later that? Well, I wrote Romancelvania as a dating game. So from the beginning, I was like, which monsters do I want to smooch? And kind of moved on from there. What do you think of giving your romantic? Yeah, so I agree with that. I think that part of creating nuanced characters is having juxtaposition. I think that the main traits of a character that they show outwardly are the opposite traits of what they have inside, their shadow selves. So you need to look at what does my character want externally and what do they show the world they want, but then like what does their shadow self secretly want? I think that you can write much more deep and nuanced characters if you explore what the you know, the outwardly projecting character wants and what the inwardly projecting shadow self wants. And I'm sorry if I'm getting a little Jung, but recommendations for fruitful void in ship building. Proximity, proximity, proximity. Keep them apart. Are all characters in Romancelvania immortal? No. So my absolute, and I'm not, like, this is like telling a favorite child. Like, oh, son number 3, you're my favorite. I'm going to tell you my favorite romance that I wrote in Romancelvania, and it's Van Helsing. In Van Helsing, they are mortal. And they're very durable, but they're mortal. And having that vulnerability, finally, and Van Helsing is the mortal enemy of Dracula, so like this was an enemies to lovers trope like none other, and it was so much fun to write. But yes, that vulnerability was huge in the trust factor. Are there any tropes or balances in Trust Less Than Us that work but you just shouldn't? I don't think I would tell anybody that they shouldn't do anything. I think anything's possible if you write it well. Right? Like, I've seen things on paper that I'm like, whoa, I would not be interested in that, and then suddenly I'm like, if it's well written, anything's possible. How do I differentiate the friendship and romance paths of Romancelvania? I would say that flirty and friendly were the main sort of choices you would get in that aspect. You know, ask on a date or ask about books and cheese, you know, like, I think that it was pretty obvious. We made it clear so that you didn't accidentally end up in love. From the Discord, yay. How do you decide what types of stories make better novels versus games, since I write both? I feel like I have two pens of plot bunnies, and they don't play together. It's just an intuitive thing. Like, I know which would make good books, and I think the ones that would make good games are the ones that have a little bit more wiggle room for where the story could go. Whereas the novels, I really do think of in the Save the Cat arch. I'm a plotter, not a pantser. Novelists often put themselves in two categories. I'm a plotter, which means I know the ending before I've written it, and pantsers, which fly by the seat of your pants and be like, F it, let's go, which is the way Stephen King does it. I'm very impressed by pantsers. I don't know how they do it. How much do you think of the player when writing a romance between characters? How much do they matter, and do they change the story? I write what I want. Very similar to the keynote, I write what works for me, and luckily a lot works for me, clearly. I mean, pumpkins, but no, seriously. Yes, sometimes, somebody else on the team would be, inspire me a bit, but ultimately, if I'm not feeling it, you're not gonna feel it, and that is just a fact, right? So I take ideas, I see if I can kind of like internalize them and get it to work in my sort of schema, but ultimately, it's up to me. And I see that some people are getting nudgy, so I'm gonna put the final screen on. Yay, hello! Here's where you can find me. I'm not on Twitter a whole lot, but you can reach me there. The Instagram, I don't really do so much. Please buy Romancelvania, it's great. It's out on the Xbox Series, PS5, Steam, EGS, and in the fall it will be coming out on Switch and PS4. If you'd like to email me, I love to talk shop. This is like my favorite thing in the world. Never hesitate to email me. I love it. So Amanda@thedeependgames.com. We do have a Discord. And my two recommended readings, Story by Robert McKee and Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. Now, whereas Save the Cat is very broad strokes of story, Story by Robert McKee is insanely granular, okay? It's about screenplay writing, but I think it applies to games. Story is incredibly, incredibly picky and nuanced, whereas Save the Cat is like, here are the broad strokes. Thank you so much for putting up with the tech issues. I'm so sorry. I really wanted to show those clips to you and have us interact with them together, so my apologies on that, but I hope we still had fun. I hope we still made some meaning, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions afterwards. So thank you guys so much. Yay!